When I was at Cisco, I was trying to start a company, a startup at that time. We both my co-founder and I, we both had business backgrounds. We didn't have any engineering co-founder. And we were trying to start a company in the web space, and we both came from networking background. So we tried doing that company for 6 months and failed miserably to some extent. But that was a life-changing experience which got me into Google. So because of my entrepreneurial interest, Google was trying to hire entrepreneurial people at that time. So that opened the door for me to go get into Google.
Everyone, welcome to MPods. We are so excited to have Mr. Raj Sarkar joining us today. He is currently the CMO of CloudBees, being named one of the top CMOs in the Forbes Entrepreneurial CMO list. He graduated and earned his MBA degree at the University of Michigan, having a background in Amazon and Sakia Capital and 1Password. And today he is here to share us his insightful thoughts and his journey in this career. So welcome.
Thank you, Arjun, for the generous introduction.
Of course. So my first question, just starting off here, is could you briefly talk about what CloudBees is and how you entered into this field?
Yeah. So CloudBees, the engineering students, I'm sure would be able to relate to. It's basically in the space called the DevTool space, right? So if you are building software, which a lot of companies do now, every Fortune 500 company is a software company, right? Now, when you build software, there are phases to building the software. The first phase is actually coding, right? The second phase is building and testing, and the third phase is deploying, right? So what CloudBees does is build tools for building, testing, and deploying, right? So engineering teams can ship and deploy code better, faster, and more secure. So that's what CloudBees does. I've been in CloudBees for almost 1.5 years now. I joined CloudBees, and the primary reason I joined CloudBees was CloudBees is what I talk about. What I tell people when I hire them is how you're trying to fly a plane and build a plane at the same time. That's what we're trying to do here at CloudBees. We're doing a strategic transformation because we're moving away from on-prem to cloud software. And at the same time, we're trying to do a cultural transformation.
Sweet. And what's like your background in this? How do you enter into CloudBees? What's your experience like, and what's your current role and require in a company like this?
So let me give some context about my background, so everything is going to fall into place, because I have a lot of interesting stories I can share with the Michigan student base. So I started off in engineering. I started when I graduated, I had a graduate degree in electronics or electrical sciences. So I worked in routers and switches when I graduated from school. TCP, I know many of you don't probably, what is Raj talking about? TCP IP. So I wrote protocol stacks, which basically ran on routers and switches. And so I come from an engineering background, right? When I went to Michigan, the reason I went to Michigan is I wanted to go to the business side. That was the reason I went to business school, because no one was going to hire me, an engineering guy in a business role. And my internship, a very interesting story. Amazon came to campus, and they gave me an offer, and then they were like, "Oh, we can't tell you what you're going to work on." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And that was like one of my consequential chapter in my career, because I was the first PM on AWS, right? You can think about AWS as the first cloud product. So I worked on AWS S3. So that started my journey on basically working on like we call it dev tools. That's the category, right? And then I graduated. I was in Cisco for 4 years. And then Google recruited me. Google recruited me to work on the Google Meet product, which is a competitor for Zoom, right? And a year later, Google was basically launching a product which was competitive to Amazon, right? And I was basically the first PMM in GCP, Google Cloud Platform. So I have a long history in working in DevTools. After Google, I did 2 startups, and then I went to Atlassian. I worked in Bitbucket and Bamboo, which was again in the DevTools space. And then I wavered a little bit. I worked in comms and collaboration. I worked in security, like 1Password, Palo Alto Networks. And then I wanted to come back to DevTools because DevTools is so near and dear to my heart. And CloudBees is in the DevTools space. So it's a big roundabout way of answering your question, like how did I come to CloudBees?
No, yeah, that's awesome. So your role as the current chief marketing officer.
Yes. Yes. Again, this is maybe an interesting story for a lot of graduating students who want to pursue a career in marketing. Always the question is, okay, my long-term goal is to become a CMO. Where do I start? There is no ideal route to start, to be honest. Like I, for example, because I had such an engineering background, I started in product marketing, right? Now there is different facets of marketing. You can go into brand marketing, you can go to growth marketing, you can go to demand generation marketing, but I started in product marketing, right? Now you'll see CMOs coming from three different backgrounds. Usually they come from either product marketing background, like I am, or come from brand marketing background. You see a lot of Fortune 500 companies, CPG companies, that the CMOs come from brand marketing background, right? And then which are companies which are very enterprise heavy and enterprise oriented have a lot of CMOs who come from demand generation background. So I did like product marketing at Cisco. Cisco was like, I say I completed my 10,000 hours of training at Cisco because I knew nothing about marketing before I joined Cisco. And then I went into dabbled into product marketing at Google. I would dabble into product marketing at Atlassian. And then in the later parts of Atlassian, I started doing responsibilities. Started getting responsibility of not only product marketing, but brand and demand generation as well. And then I slowly transitioned into like a head of marketing role. My last three roles, Palo Alto Networks, 1Password, and then CloudBees were all like head of marketing role.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm sure you know this, I'm sure Eric knows this, but being in Ross, it feels like marketing isn't one of the most sought after career. Everyone wants to do work in finance or consulting. So for everyone who wants to pursue a career in marketing, and with your experience, how does one actually succeed in the marketing field? Could you give us a marketing
Yeah,
math class here?
yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that story, Herjan, because I was also one of the students who dabbled into going into consulting. I was
Oh, yeah.
always going into consulting, and then I chose the path of. The reason is, and I'm speaking for MBAs, it may be the same for BBAs. There are not many companies, tech companies, who come to campus for recruiting. The only companies which come are usually big companies. So if you really want a job in marketing in like a cutthroat like tech company, you probably have to reach out to them, do a lot of the legwork individually, right? Build your network. So that's why I think consulting in IB is much easier because they come to campus, they recruit. CPG companies also do that a lot. But I can tell you there's a lot of Michigan alumni in marketing. Like I meet them all the time. So it's not like our school is not good for marketing. Our school is pretty good for marketing, but it's just like students generally gravitate towards IB and consulting because it's so one of the things which I think for marketing is super important is using both sides of your brain. And to be honest, like me initially when I got into marketing, I come from an engineering background, so I usually leaned heavily on the analytical side of my brain, right? But over the years, I've started enjoying the creative side of marketing a lot. So having this dual brain is super important to be successful in marketing, especially if you're one of those people who really enjoy the creative side. You're in business, you're in econ, but you enjoy the creative side, then marketing would be like a great career path for you.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, and about that, so diving a little bit deeper into marketing, how do you think about the concept of virality? And I know you used this term in the past in the research. You used the term outbound fury.
Yes.
What does that term mean to you?
Okay.
And also with could you define how you think about virality as well?
Yeah, it's what I actually talk externally about this a lot. So the origin of the term, it's basically happened at Google. As part of the Google enterprise team. Now, I'm talking about 2010. 2011, Microsoft was a behemoth at that time, right? Microsoft had a massive war chest to some extent, right? They were spending a lot of brand dollars on Microsoft Office. Google Apps, because Google, I don't know if you remember this in 2010, you were probably like in, in middle school at that time, or even like elementary school. So Larry Page just became the CEO, and Larry's obsession was to go after Facebook. So Google Plus was huge. I don't know if you, I don't know if your listeners even know about this product called Google Plus, which was launched and then we killed it. Anyway, so there was a lot of the consumer team was getting a lot of brand dollars. The enterprise team was not getting a lot of brand dollars. And then we were like, okay, how do we do marketing? How do we get attention in the market, right? Because Microsoft can pull billboards, they can do TV ads. We don't have any dollars to do it. So we came up with this fun thing, which we call Outbound Fury. And basically, the idea there was we will meet on a weekly basis and say what fun, interesting things we can do to hijack some attention. I'll give you one specific example, which is a really good example. So we learned that Microsoft Office is going to launch their cloud version of Microsoft Office called Office 365. And we knew exactly when they were going to launch the product. So the day before they launched it, Google basically published a blog post saying 365 reasons to choose Google Apps. So the blog post went the day before the launch. Now, what do you expect the press next day talking about the launch to do? They basically linked to Google's blog post, right? So we got a lot of attention. So basically, we hijacked their launch to some extent, right? So this is a very one specific example of outbound fury, like small, interesting things you can do to get attention. I have a blog on Substack. If you do, like for the students, if you do a search on outbound fury, you'll see my blog post comes up on the top. There are a lot of examples from Atlassian I have used as well. Like the Trello team did a lot of interesting things. The Bitbucket team, a lot of interesting things. There's this concept of Easter eggs, which comes from the gaming world, right? Like you put Easter eggs in games and then it becomes just viral because people are talking about it. Like, hey, how do I find this Easter egg, right? So we used to do a lot of Easter eggs in our products just to basically increase the virality of the product. Now, why is this important? This is important because it is becoming, especially now, it has become like super noisy. It's pick any category in the market, it's super crowded. Like, how do you get attention right now, right? So the getting attention is becoming like much, much harder, and in things like this becomes more important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going off of that, like I see that on your LinkedIn, you also write a lot of like different posts. And I saw that one post you wrote talks about like the human multiple, for example. And I think as a business major and people going into business, like the importance of the human multiple is really fascinating and it really is important. So what do you think is the key to finding a strong team? And what do you specifically look for in humans that would leverage your ideas, whether it comes to the virality that you talked about or marketing in general or in the engineering space?
Yeah. So I use this statement a lot. Actually, I was talking about it at the company on hands yesterday. I use this phrase called strategy, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the point I'm trying to make there is you might, as a company, you might have an incredible strategy, but if you don't have the right people to execute, then you're going to fail. So investing in people is super, super important. And the first and foremost question is, how do you find these people? I think this might be very interesting for a lot of people here in Michigan, because I know Michigan does an incredibly great job of picking people who are multifaceted to some extent, right? I think I picked this from even the early Google days when we used to hire people in our teams. You know what? Where we were instructed to go and look in the resumes, the additional section, because the additional section tells a lot about the people you're going to hire. Because we were just having a discussion in our team, marketing team, like we were marketing leaders. How many people have played in varsity sports and their 5 out of 7 had their hands up? So the things I look at when I am hiring people is like, what do they do outside work? Do they have high agency or not? Do they have curiosity or not? That is more important to me than obviously the knowledge, craft knowledge. At a certain level, you expect people to have craft knowledge, but what you do outside work I think, separates the great candidates from the good candidates a lot. So that is one of the things I do when I hire. And then I have this philosophy, and I'm sure you've heard this term called servant leadership. And the concept of servant leadership is basically the way to think about organizations as an inverted pyramids. Because usually when you think about an organization pyramid, you think about the CEO on the top and then the people on the front lines at the bottom. Now, the people at the front lines are the ones who are closest to the customer. Servant leadership basically inverts the pyramid. And the role of the CEO is basically to serve his or her leadership team. And then my role is to serve my leadership team. So that's the way to think about this. It's like an inverted pyramid. And my job primarily is to make sure that I remove roadblocks, motivate and inspire my team, and make sure they have the tools to be successful. Right? If you hire the smart people, right, they will know what to do. You don't have to tell them what to do. They will know what to do. So this is where the concept of the human multiple.
Oh, I see. So like having the right people in the right roles and also having people who are high agency and intellectually curious as well
That's
is incredibly important. And I wanted to just pivot for a brief moment to talk about some of the career challenges first before the successes, I would guess. So I know one challenge that you wrote about was the product Google Talk for Meets
yeah.
was one of the challenges. I was wondering if you could tell us how you
Yeah.
felt when that project got canceled.
A good question, Eric. I always say this. People only look at successful people and think that, hey, their career path has been a straight line. But career path is never a straight line. I have listed another blog post around this because, the most successful people in the world have gone through some kind of failures at certain point in their lives. And I have so many stories I can talk about, like post business school, I think, which is going to be relevant to a lot of graduating students in general. I think the first one was Cisco. When I was at Cisco, I was trying to start a company, a startup at that time. We both my co-founder and I, we both had business backgrounds. We didn't have any engineering co-founder. And we were trying to start a company in the web space, and we both came from networking background. So we tried doing that company for 6 months and failed miserably to some extent. But that was a life-changing experience, which got me into Google. Because of my entrepreneurial interest, Google was trying to hire entrepreneurial people at that time. So that opened the door for me to go get into Google, right? So that was one first example. Then I worked on this product we called it internally Google Talk for Meetings. This is the Google Meet product now. What happened is I worked on this product for a year and they killed the product a week before launch. And the reason they killed the product is because it became part of Google Plus. Like I was telling you the story about Google Plus, it became Google Hangouts. Remember, Google Hangouts was a thing. I'm sure both of you have used it, Google Hangouts in your schools, because it was hugely popular in schools, actually. So that was my second, I would say, yeah, kind of failure to some extent. My third failure is I talk about this. I don't know how many of your audience have seen the Silicon Valley show on HBO. I don't know if either of you have seen the show.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
If you haven't, if you're going to the tech, you should watch it. That's the right representation of how how tech life was pre-pandemic. I won't say post-pandemic things have changed a little bit, but it's like giving up my cushy job at Julio and going to a startup. It was exactly like that because I left Google. I took a pay cut, went into a Y Combinator startup as a head of marketing in an 8-person seed stage company, right? It was a train wreck. Like I did 2 startups back to back. I learned a lot. I learned to be scrappy. I learned how hard it is to do marketing in a startup. But again, those were 2 stories of like huge failures before I landed at Atlassian. So at Google, I was already leading a team, but I took a step back at Atlassian. I joined as an individual contributor, and then I worked my way up. at Atlassian. Atlassian, I was at one point in time, I was almost getting fired because I got into a fight with the CEO. And then my boss basically gave me an executive coach and it changed my path, altered my career a little bit. So there are many stories like this in my career, and I'm sure many of you are going to face that in your lives as well. It's not about the failures, it's about how you deal when you fail. I think that's the most important thing. I think the most successful people have grit and perseverance. Go look into sports like Michael Jordan, right? I don't know how many of you have watched Last Dance. It took a long time before Chicago Bull became the team, the legendary team, right? They went through a lot of failures in multiple seasons, right? So keep that in mind. Like failures is going to be a part of your journey to becoming CEOs and CMOs and CROs in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel comfortable, I mean, that I thought that was interesting, sharing what the conflict with the CEO was. You don't have to share, but
I can tell you the story. It is not conflict with the CEO. So basically, I was part of the Bitbucket team. I was leading the Bitbucket team. It was like the way I would characterize it is a maturity to some extent, professional maturity from my perspective. So there was a group Slack channel, right? And no, I was not Slack. It's HipChat. I don't know how many of HipChat, but HipChat came before Slack. Anyway, so it was a group chat channel, and the CEO was basically saying that the marketing team was not doing much in Bitbucket. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And I listed out everything. So it came across as very defensive, right? Instead of acknowledging we were not perfect in any shape or form, right? You go and talk to any CEO, and the CEO will say, "Oh, these are three things which are working and three things which are not working." Any smart executive, everyone will say that. So it was a little bit of maturity on my part, and especially it's in a group setting. You should never do that in a group setting. If I wanted to have a conversation with the CEO, I should have done it on a private Slack channel. So that was like one but I think where the executive coach helped is basically we all have blind spots. So he did a collected 360 feedback and gave me the 360 feedback to me saying, hey, these are the things which like people are saying you need to alter. So things like that helped me a lot understanding my blind spots because we all have, and I keep saying this is one of the other thing, feedback is a gift. Right, that's good. Everyone, like all of you, feedback is a gift as long as you're open to. We are not perfect. We are all humans. Humans are not perfect, imperfect beings. Anyway, so that just to give you an idea what the story was about. Did we lose?
Thank you for that.
Eric a little bit. I think Eric is frozen. You're back.
Yeah, Hojin, you want to take?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I know a lot of people want to go into like entrepreneurship and startups, for example. And I think the main reason why it stops us from it is because we don't know if our ideas are going to work and we don't know this, we don't know that. I just like from a personal question too, what do you think is like the most important thing when it comes to startups? Because I see that you're also like a builder and startup advisor, especially like a freshman at the university. I know a lot of our listeners are also like young freshman students too. What would be your advice to them when it comes to startups?
Early part of your life, that's the best time to start companies. That's the best time. I'm telling you right now, that's the best time to start companies. So it's not about the idea. First and foremost, right? If you look at venture capitalists, they don't invest based on ideas, they invest on people. Because if you see a lot of successful startups, they have pivoted a lot. Like Slack, for example, Slack didn't start as a group chat company. Slack started as a gaming company, for example, right? So I think don't think too much about the idea. It's about the execution. Idea makes or breaks companies, but you can always pivot if you have the right group of people. Like starting with an idea first, and then experimenting with that idea, establishing product market fit early on. I have met a lot of founders who have started their companies in the dorms, basically. And I wish like I'll see more people coming out of Michigan starting companies as well. Michigan is a great school. And Michigan is one of the schools where you not only find like engineering talent, you find business talent. So you have peers who have come from all different functions. So if you want to start like go into entrepreneurship, this is the time to do it.
You don't think it's too saturated now, or?
What do you mean by saturation? 99% of startups will fail. And if you're afraid of failure, then you'll never be successful.
Exactly. I like
Right?
that.
See, the corporate America job is always there. It's not going to go away. And many companies will basically, like I was saying, like that's one of the reasons I got hired into Google is because I started to do something interesting and exciting, right, outside my job profile. It's a very desirable trait in general. If you try to do something on your own, even if you fail, at least you tried. And nowadays, there are so many incubators in general. I'm sure Michigan, the School of Michigan, have their own incubators as well. I know Michigan has, at least the Ross School has a venture fund called the Wolverine Venture Fund as well. Then, if like, for example, if any of you is interested in starting a company, reach out to me. I can make intros as well. My involvement with Checo Capital is basically what they do is they identify functional experts for their companies, for their seed companies. So Sequoia has this program called the Sequoia ARC program, for example, where you can apply and get a grant. And I know a lot of venture capital firms also have it to some extent, right? I met someone very recently through the Sequoia ARC program who just started a company right after graduation. They just left school and they got admission into the ARC program. So you gonna fail, that's fine. That's the whole point of the exercise. Like 99% of startups fail anyway. So assume that you're gonna fail, but what makes the 1% different from the 99% is the grit and perseverance, which is I was talking about. It's incredibly hard. It's incredibly easy to do startups in early part of your career. It's incredibly hard to do startups later part of your career.
Yeah. Yeah, the startups encountering a lot of challenges in front of you and having to persevere over them. And there were challenges, but I'd like to go now into the fun part after the challenges, into some of the successes. You were named, top 50 CMOs by Forbes. You had a number of successful campaigns, and just like, what were some of your favorite campaigns that you launched and like how they turned out?
I think there is so many. I can't even list all of them. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll find some of them. I think the one which is the most relevant because it happened just before the Forbes nomination is one of the things we were dealing with at 1Password when I was the CMO is how do you make security accessible to the masses? How many of you are familiar with 1Password? Do any of you are familiar with 1Password? Do you know what 1Password is? Okay. So 1Password is, you know how this world, like everywhere you go, you have to use a password. Majority of the people, what they do, they use the same password everywhere, right? Now that's not safe because if one tool gets cracked, your password gets cracked, then you're exposed completely. What 1Password does, it's very easily, you can generate passwords and you don't even have to remember the password. Right, that's the cool thing about 1Password. You just need to remember one password. That's why the name 1Password came from. And then you can log into like multiple tools. And there are a lot of now passkeys. Apple has launched something called the passkeys. Google Chrome has this thing called the Chrome Password Manager. The point was when I was at 1Password is like, how do we make security accessible to the masses? Because security as a topic is very technical to some extent. So Ryan Reynolds was basically an investor for 1Password. So we were thinking about 1Password brand, and we said, okay, Ryan has the perfect brand characteristics for 1Password. So we went to Ryan's team and said, hey, can we create a commercial with you, which is educate individuals around what 1Password is and what 1Password does. So Ryan did a set of ads for 1Password. 1Password was the first tech company he did an ad for. Look it up, just search 1Password Ryan Reynolds on YouTube. You can see the ad. It's incredible ad. It's basically he integrates his football club, Wrexham Football Club, basically because he owns Wrexham Football Club as part of the ad as well. And then Hulu actually did a documentary on Wrexham, and you'll see 1Password actually mentioned as part of that documentary as well. So that was one of the reasons why I think Forbes picked up, because we were doing a lot. We call it human-centric security, because the idea there was the way we were trying to position 1Password is every security company thinks about protecting protecting data, protecting inanimate objects to some extent, right? And we were basically trying to protect the human. So we were building a circle of trust around the human. So we called it human-centric security. So that's how I think Forbes saw the ads, and that's how I became part of the Forbes list.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you. So what does the brainstorming room look like? Like, what are some of the tools, or what are some of the methods of conversation? Like, you're in a room with people throwing around ideas. Like, what does that room look like?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, because I usually do something called an innovation week or innovation day. And the idea there is how engineering teams does hackathons. The idea behind the hackathon is basically give up your day job and go and build something interesting for a day or two. It started at Google and Facebook, right? Think about it, the business version of hackathon, which is, hey, for a day or two, you get to give up your day job, like whatever you're doing. Think about interesting ways on how you can market products. So we did that at Atlassian, we did that at 1Password, I do that at CloudBees as well. I call it the Innovation Day, where people just pencils down. They think about interesting stuff they can do, interesting projects, interesting campaigns, interesting channels. Creativity is something which there is no formula behind it, right?
Yeah, it just happens spontaneously when you get the right type of people.
And I think the most important thing about how to encourage creativity is to encourage failures, because you're like, maybe 9 out of 10 ideas will fail, one of them will be successful. And this is what Amazon's Jeff Bezos talks about, like how in baseball you miss a ball, like you can get striked out, but if you hit the ball, it's a home run, right? In business, if you strike a ball, your returns can be infinite. It's not limited to like 4 runs, right? 9 out of 10 ideas will fail. One idea will become a huge hit, and you get 100x return from it. There's the same concept in venture capital, right? You invest in 10 startups, 9 startups will fail, and one will give you 100x returns.
And so I know we're coming short on time here, but I'm actually really curious because we're on the topic of the brainstorming room and creativity. From your perspective, what do you like? What emerging trends in like technology and marketing are you like most excited about to bring up in a brainstorming room, and how should different companies and people prepare to leverage these trends?
Yeah, everyone is talking about AI. And
Yeah.
AI is a new thing. Can AI be creative? You know what? Sam Altman just did a post around how they've created a new LLM model which can write creative stories. I don't know if both of you have seen this. He just recently tweeted about it, which is very interesting if you think about it. Instead of humans doing humans coming up with creative ideas, the machines are going to come up with the creative ideas. But I think one of the things which I am super passionate about, and I am encouraging my team to look into, is basically how to leverage AI more in marketing. You can do a lot of interesting things with AI, right? Like, for example, you can write personalized messaging, right, in mass scale, which you can't do right now. AI has made it possible, right? You can do account-based marketing. Again, you needed more humans to do account-based marketing because you have to customize and personalize the messages. You can now do it en masse with AI. So AI is, I know anyone you talk to, like AI is something which is getting a lot of attention because it's one of those technologies which is going to, I think, quadruple, not maybe 10x our output to some extent as humans.
That's really cool. In my like current psych, like one of my psych classes I'm taking, I'm writing like a research paper on whether or not these LLMs like exhibit like theory of mind and if they can employ like social reasoning like the human mind. I mean, I don't know if you've done research into like different large language models or anything like that, but the research, like I feel like the process of finding this out is like really cool in my opinion.
Yeah, anything is possible. If you think about it, we can just for an intellectual level, our brain operates the same way how the new AI is using neural networks to some extent. So, what is saying that they cannot think, they cannot feel, the emotions will not be there, but the logic can still be there. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens in that space in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I think that's a fascinating topic of if they actually can think or not. But I'd like to ask. Typically, we like to ask this question of, are there any topics or questions that we haven't covered yet that we probably should cover in this?
I think I will end this with a note. I am super fortunate that I got to go to the University of Michigan. Michigan opened a lot of doors for me, and you all should be incredibly proud to be part of this school as well. The world is your oyster. That's the way to think about this. So take advantage of it. And the Michigan alumni is super helpful. Feel free to reach out to the Michigan alumni anytime. And you will see Michigan alumni everywhere, like sports, tech, CPG, finance, banking, find us everywhere. But thank you for this invitation, Eric and Hojun. This was a great chatting with all of you, and I really enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you so much. You've been incredibly kind with your time. So thank you so much, Raj, and we wish you the best of luck. And yeah, everyone, yeah, check out CloudBees if you're
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.